Chapter 2 test study guide. So you are going to have basically everything that we've covered in Chapter 2, including equations. So here we have a multi-step equation. Just need to remember those steps. First step is to distribute if necessary. Now, do we have to distribute in this problem? Absolutely. And before you start watching me, complete these problems, I highly suggest that you try to do them on your own, because that really is what's going to give you the true measure as to whether you're ready for this test or not. Okay, so first we're going to want to distribute, and if you do that, you get 18x minus 14x, then negative 2 times positive 3 would be negative 6. That's going to equal negative 38. So if you remember your steps, your first step was to distribute, right? If necessary, your second step would be to combine like terms. And do we have like terms? Yes, we have negative 14 and negative 6, which would combine and give us negative 20. What do we do next? Get the variable on the same side if we have two variables on the same side. So I'm not even going to write that, but we don't have the variables on both sides. So the fourth step is just to solve. So how would we solve this? We would add 20 on both sides, and we would be left with 18x equals negative 10. I'm sorry, this was supposed to be a negative 38. So this would be 18x equals negative 18. And then we divide by 18 on both sides. And if you do that, you get your answer, which is x equals negative 1. So just remember these steps when you're solving these multi-step equations. So here again, we're going to need to distribute the negative. And if we do that, we get, you're going to have 8k, because we're just bringing that down, minus 6k, and then the negative and the negative here will turn into a plus 4. That's going to equal 10. After we distribute, we're going to want to combine like terms, which we have like terms right over here. 8k minus 6k would be 2k, plus 4 equals 10. Then we just solve. Minus 4. You get 2k equals 6 divided by 2. You get your answer, which is k equals 3. So just remember these steps. Take your time with these multi-step equations. Remember your negatives. Remember your integer rules. And you should do well with these type of problems. Solve the inequality. Again, we're going to want to distribute first. So steps are the same. Only difference is now we have an inequality. And these aren't your compound inequalities yet. These are, we're not going to have and or. So we have negative 2x if we distribute the negative plus 7. That's less than or equal to 34 minus 6x. All right, now we combine like terms. The 3 and the 7. 3 plus 7 is 10. And we get this. Now we move our variable to the same side, so I'm going to go ahead and add 6x, but it wouldn't matter which term you move. And then when you do that, you get 10 minus 8x is less than or equal to 34. So what do you do next? Subtract 10 on both sides, right? And we've been doing this for a while now, so hopefully it's getting a bit easier for you. And then we're going to divide by a negative 8 on both sides. So because we're dividing by a negative 8, we must flip our inequality symbol. So it's actually going to be x is greater than or equal to negative 3. How do we plot this? I'm just going to put negative 3 on the number line. Close circle because it's greater than or equal to, and because it's greater than or equal to, we are going to go to the right, just like that. All right, same with this. We're going to distribute the negative 2 to each of the terms on the inside of the parenthesis. So that would be 7x minus 2x plus 8, right? Because negative 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8. That's less than or equal to negative 2. Then we combine like terms. So that would be 5x plus 8 is less than or equal to negative 2. Subtract 8 on both sides. We get 5x is less than or equal to negative 10. Then we divide by 5 on both sides, and we get x is less than or equal to negative 2. So we're starting on negative 2. We have a closed circle because it's less than or equal to, and because it's less than, we are going to the left. Here we have a compound inequality. This is going to be an and compound inequality. You could solve it just the way it is right here, or if it makes it easier, you could go ahead and split it up. So if you're splitting it up, you're going to want to read it backwards, right? And if we read that backwards, that would give us our first inequality. That's x minus 12 over 4. And if we're reading it backwards, it's going to be greater than negative 6. And what's our other inequality? Well, that one we just look at by reading it from left to right. So that would be x minus 12 over 4 is less than negative 2. Then we just solve it. So what would we get rid of first here? The 4. And we would multiply both sides by 4. And if we do that, we get, this will cancel, x minus 12 is greater than negative 24. Add 12 on both sides, and we get x is greater than negative 12. Over here, same thing. We're going to multiply both sides by 4. And we get, and the 4's are going to cancel over here, x minus 12 is less than negative 8. Then we add 12 on both sides, and we get x is less than 4. And this is an and compound inequality, right? So remember, and both inequalities have to be true. Okay, both inequalities have to be true in order for the value to be true. So with this inequality, we're starting at negative 12, and we have an open circle, and it's greater than. So we're supposed to go this way, right? But remember, with and compound inequalities, both inequalities have to be true. So we have to look at that second inequality, which is x is less than 4. We're starting on 4, open circle, right? Because it's less than. And we're going to the left, and we only want the section where they are overlapping. And that's the only section that we want, this section right here that's overlapping. And that's going to be our solution, where they overlap. So that's going to be right here, and that's the only section that we're shading with this compound inequality. That's the only set of solutions that we have. Here we have an or compound inequality. So we have x plus 7 is less than or equal to 7, and 5 plus 2x is greater than 7. So remember, or compound inequalities tend to graph apart. So if we solve this, we're going to subtract by 7 on both sides, and we get x is less than or equal to 0. And here we're going to subtract by 5 first, and we get 2x is greater than 2. And we divide by 2, and we get x is greater than 1. So if we are going to plot this on our number line here, our first inequality would be x is less than or equal to 0. So we're going to have a closed circle on 0. We're going to the left because it's less than. We're going to the left. All right. And then our other inequality over here is x is greater than 1. So greater than mean open circle. And we'd be going to the right because it's greater than. Okay. And you see how they are, we're graphing these apart, and or compound inequalities tend to go opposite directions like this with an opening in the middle. And that's it. Here we have another or compound inequality. So x minus 5 is less than 3. X minus 5 is greater than or equal to 8. And this is or. So we're going to go ahead and solve this. Plus 5, plus 5. We get x is less than 8. I'm hoping that that's what you got when you did it on your own. And we add 5 on the right-hand side. We get x is greater than or equal to 13. Okay, and if you haven't done these on your own, please do the rest of them on your own. Don't just watch me doing them. Okay, the best way to study is for you to try to do them on your own and then come back and see where you might have made a mistake or see where you got it correct. So here our first inequality is x is less than 8. We're going to have an open circle on 8, right, because it's less than. We're going to go to the left-hand side. And then this other inequality, x is greater than or equal to 13. We're going to have a closed circle on 13. We're going to go to the right because it's greater than or equal to. Here's another and. So remember, if you wanted to solve it like this and not separate them, you can do that, or you could separate them if that's easier for you. So you're going to read it start the center and read it backwards. If you do that, you get 2x minus 10 is greater than or equal to 0. And our other inequality we just figure out by reading this forward from left to right. So that would be 2x minus 10 is less than or equal to 20. If that helps you out when you're solving them, then break them apart. Now we just solve these. We add 10 on both sides. We get 2x is greater than or equal to 10. Then we divide by 2 on both sides, and we get x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay. On the right-hand side, we add 10 on both sides, and we get 2x is less than or equal to 30. We divide by 2 on both sides. We get x is less than or equal to 15. That's it. So when we're putting these on our number line here, this first inequality, x is greater than or equal to 5, that's going to be right here. And we're going to have actually a closed circle because it's greater than or equal to. And we're supposed to go this way, right? This is and, so we're only concerned with the section that overlaps. So with our other inequality, x is less than or equal to 15, that's right here. Again, we have a closed circle, and we're supposed to go this way, right? But with and, I'm only concerned with the section that overlaps, which would be this section right here. This section right here is what overlaps, so the only portion that I'm going to shade is this middle section that overlaps. And that's it. Hopefully that's what you got for your answer when you solved it. Graphing apart here. So remember, or compound inequalities are the ones that have a tendency to graph apart. So this is going to be an or compound inequality. We just need to figure out what's going on each side. So on the left-hand side, well, we're starting at -2, right? And what's going on? Are we decreasing or increasing at -2? We are decreasing. We're going to the left towards negative infinity. So it's going to be less than. But if you notice, we also have a closed circle here, so that means we are including -2 as part of our solution as well. So it'll be x is less than or equal to -2. Whereas on the right-hand side, here our starting point is 7, and we are going towards positive infinity. We are gaining ground here. We are increasing, so it's going to be greater than. But because this right here is a closed circle, that means we're going to be able to include 7 in our solution set. So it's going to be greater than or equal to 7. This one they're graphing together, right? So whenever they're graphing together, we know that we normally have an and compound inequality, right? And if we look at this, starting from -3, what's going on? Are we going to the left or to the right? Well, we're going to the right. So our first inequality is going to be x is greater than or equal to -3. And the reason why it's greater than or equal to is because this is a closed circle. Okay, and if we look at our other endpoint here, which is 6, what's going on at 6? We're going to the left. Okay, so that's going to mean x is less than 6, and it's less than here because we have an open circle, not less than or equal to. All right, or another way that you could have written this is you could have had -3 is less than or equal to x is less than 6, and that also would have been correct. An iguana needs to live in a warm environment. The temperature in the pet iguana's cage should be between 70 degrees and 95 degrees inclusive. So this right off the bat, I can tell that this is going to be an and compound inequality because I only care about the temperatures that are in that range, between 70 and 95, right? So I'm gonna have two set limits, right? I only care about what's in between 70 and 95, right? An iguana can't be in an environment at 65 degrees, and an iguana can't be in an environment that's 100 degrees, right? I only care about this area right here. Okay, and we could include 70 and 95 in our solution. So this is obviously going to be an and compound inequality, and just like we did above in our previous example, what are our inequalities going to be? First one, we're starting at 70, we're including 70, and we're going to the right, so it's going to be greater than or equal to. And then the next one, we are starting at 95, we are including 95, and we're going to the left. So that would be your and compound inequality right there. That's all you would need to do with those type of problems. So if water's temperature is above 100 degrees, it would be a gas, and if water's temperature is below 0 degrees, it would be a solid. So water is not a liquid if its temperature is above 100 degrees or below 0 degrees. Now that right there tells us we're going to be dealing with an or compound inequality. Or you could just kind of figure it out. I mean, if water's temperature is 70 degrees, it would be liquid. But if water's temperature was 105, 106, 107, up to, you could keep going on forever and ever, it would not be a liquid. And the converse of that is true as well. If we're on the negative side, -1, -2, -3 degrees Celsius, it would be a solid. So this is going to be an or compound inequality. So this right here above 100 degrees, we're starting at 100, right? And we are going to the right because it has to be above 90 degrees. And then below 0 degrees, we're starting at 0. And we are going to the left. And this is an or compound inequality, so as you see, they have a tendency to graph apart. Then if we were to write a compound inequality, remember this is or, and then our first inequality would be well, x, and what's going on the left-hand side, it looks like it's going to be x is less than 0. And we can't include 0 because it's an open circle, right? Because it says below 0 degrees. It doesn't say below or equal to or anything like that. We're not including 0. And then or, with our next inequality, we're starting at 100, right? And it looks like we're increasing, so that's going to be greater than 100. And that would be your or compound inequality. And that's it. I tried to make this study guide video a lot shorter than your other study guide videos, and I think I accomplished that. But if you still are struggling with some of these problems, come to tutoring tomorrow. Look over your study guide. Keep trying these problems out on your own. Keep working on them until you could solve them on your own. Good luck tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow.